Okay, so before we really get into a lot of animating geometry and bones and all that stuff, I kind of just want to talk about just animating a little bit of camera movement. I'm not really a big fan of like putting a bunch of camera movements, like zoom and stuff like that. I prefer just like static shots a lot of times whenever I do my stuff, just because usually when I do my storyboards, I'll go ahead and set the shot up and then I'll set my camera up and I'll lock it, then I'll cut to another scene unless the production calls for it, and you've got like a dolly camera that you need to follow an object or something needs to kind of zoom or slowly do a pass by. But the cameras are really handy. You've got four of them that are come default anyway, of like four panels. This is obviously your perspective, and then your orthographic ones, um, or your perspective, and then your top, front, and side. Which basically, if you go to here, you can see them all. Let's say like this camera here, I'll create a new camera. You can always go here and create a camera from view. And what this does is basically creates a new camera in here that you can rename. So now if you go to your double view and you go to your perspective view, you'll see two cameras there. You've got your renderable and your perspective view. This is your camera view. So now if I go back out of my perspective view, you can see that camera I've got there. Any way you go moving this is going to move the view coming out of the actual camera. Pretty handy. Your camera comes with a lot of attributes that I'll let you mess around with. Some film students may be more experienced with them, but like I said, my experience only goes so far with like actual camera key grip handling and stuff like that on set. So the good thing about Maya is all the attributes basically are going to be exact. So you're not like, just the sleight of hand, you've unzoomed something, it's always going to be an exact number that you can go and adjust things, which is always kind of good. But then again, a little bit knowledge, you need to stay a little bit more knowledgeable in terms of how you want your shot to be. I have messed around with like some Zolly shots and panning shots to where slow pans, like, I'm panning out of the scene, slowly fade away to make that shot how I want it to. That is, acceptable and stuff like that. So let's just go back out of that. Oops. Got rid of that. And I've created this like little aquatic creature here. And I was just do like a little passerby, flyby camera shot. So I could just create a new camera up here. I'm dealing with 120, that's cool right now. The good thing about cameras, you can kind of scale them. It doesn't really affect any way that it sees the object. It doesn't really give it a bigger focal or a bigger focal point or anything. It's just, you can see it a lot easier. So sometimes if your scene is really big, you need to adjust your cameras, that's fine. I'm going to change the name of this one to Flyby. And this is important, especially if you've got different scenes. I have had multiple cameras set up in different scenes because I'm running two different shots, basically the same way you would run on a movie set. You'd have two or three different angles you want to view that scene. So say if I wanted to make a shot from right here and then an overhead shot, I'd set two cameras up, and accordingly name them. So I want to look through this. I like seeing my camera too, and then I like looking through it. So I'm going to go over here, and then I want to basically go to the panel where you can I'm hitting spacebar, panels, perspective, flyby. Now this is what my actual camera is seeing. So if I go to this screen here and I kind of zoom it back, now I've got that. So just to put some simple movement on it, I'm going to hit S on my timeline, go to 30 frames in and do a slow kind of zoom in. Hit S again. Pretty fast, but 30 frames, I'm sorry, not 30 seconds. But if that's the shot I'm going for, that's the shot I'm going for. Then you can kind of, go from really wherever the sky's the limit. You can adjust this, you can turn it down. See, because now I'm adjusting the rotation of it. So here, if I press S there, yeah. Now, if you notice it had that aim on there a while ago, you can key that separately too. So if you press T, now you can see the aim point of it. In other words, and if you have this thing selected together, you can keyframe that one, but you can actually keyframe the point of view too. So I'm going to take this here, back here, and I'm going to adjust my point of view there, and I'll just keyframe that one. So if I were to adjust this way over here now, it obviously is going to make me point over there. So it's a little tricky. Sometimes it's best just to not worry about that aim point, kind of let it be, and animate the camera, then the point where your viewpoint is. I'll show you the way I usually do that when it comes to that kind of stuff. You have this camera and aim, create camera and aim. You can do that. I'll show you that here in a minute with the motion path. So let's talk about doing, say, like a flyby. It's really hard to kind of just animate. To me, it's to animate a camera just in midair. What I like to do is draw out the path. And what I mean by that is constraining a camera to basically a track. Now, if you've taken my modeling class, I showed you how to make turntable animations. And one of the methods was basically to create a circle, a curve around the middle, and then create a camera on this path here. Or, you could basically animate the actual object turning a couple different ways. But the good thing about putting it on a motion path outside is you can adjust this to kind of go up and down, in other words. So basically, if you create a camera here, right like this, you select the camera, then you select the surface. Oh. You're in your animation tab, you go to constrain, you go to this motion path, you go to this box here, and you usually got to figure out which way is up, front axis up, which way you want it to point. Let's just go ahead and apply. Okay, it's automatically going to go to the center. So if you press your T, it's basically your aim is kind of on it. So, but the thing is, it constrains what it does. This time range slider here, if you want it to be start to end, whatever your time slider is, it's going to constrain the path motion to the camera for the length, the duration of this actual motion path right here. So in other words, if I'm looking through it, let's rename this thing. Now you're kind of going around. And why do this instead of just animating this going in a circle? Well, you can take this thing here, this actual motion path, and you can actually kind of turn it and curve it. Kind of give you a little bit more dynamic. So it's not just your average flyby, or not just your average turntable. So it doesn't look like this object is the one spinning. It looks like the camera is actually spinning. And you can actually go as far as control vertex. Curve these things up. The only thing is this thing is pointed here, so if you kind of go too far up, you're not going to see it. See, like it kind of goes out of shot there, kind of comes back. It may work for you, but if that's the case and you just want to keep one eye or always keep your focal point, you really need to use a camera and aim option, which I'll show you how to do that. And you can go in the graph. You notice the way it kind of slows down. Just get this one on my renderable. If you'll notice the timeline, if I just press play, it starts, it's kind of easing, then it just slows down, and it'll start back again. You can fix that in the graph editor. And we'll be doing this a lot with like walk cycles and stuff. So this is the motion path value basically of the camera. So I'm gonna like select these two and go to linear tangent. So that way it will basically a repetitive kind of loop. And that's good for like if you want to add a keyframe here and kind of slow it down, you can. We'll go over a lot of this with like say walk cycles, kind of work the same way with this. You know, you don't, if you animating a walk cycle on a motion path, you don't want him slowing down, you just want him walking or running around a track, you know, do like stuff like that. So this works for, get rid of this camera, like that. This works for basically drawing in, say, if you have an want to make a shot kind of curved around. Now that's a top, looking at the top view, it's flat. I know it's flat. It didn't look flat from the perspective view, but it is. So let's get a camera and aim. We'll show you how this will work. So the camera and aim basically comes with this, it's a group. It's basically a camera then an aim group. So you want to select a group and you move it around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this to the motion path, constrain it. If I select a now your camera basically is always going to point this way here where the aim is. You can go and adjust this stuff here in your motion path attribute, inverse up. You can point it different, inverse front. You can make the front axis, make it along the path. Say if you wanted to attach two objects and have the camera follow it. I just want to go back to how I had it. I like that. Now I'm going to take this object here and I'm going to constrain it to this object. So basically your aim will always be on, because if you look through it, you can go to look through selected just to check it sometimes. You know, to go out of shot. Following that path, but it's not aiming toward the object that you want to see. So you want to constrain this to select your object first and your aim, and then we'll go to point. So now basically every time you move your camera, it is going to point at the actual object. Let's go look at our camera view so you can see both views. It looks like it's spinning, but not really, because you're actually kind of passing by it. So you could kind of make this more mess with your curve some if you wanted to. Like it's flying kind of close in it, then it kind of passes by it and goes out past it, you know? You get the idea. Really handy way to do that. I think, like I said, a lot of times, people find out they can animate cameras and they do it all the time and it kind of gets annoying, I think. You know, you just don't want to overdo like your panning and your zooming and your flybys. You got to use them very um, fitting for the shot. Like I said, I'm a static shot guy. I'll usually set my cameras up and I'll make the animation happen within that just because that's the way I enjoy working. But like I said, if the production calls for certain things, you've just got to make sure, and referring back to our principles of animation, you've got to make sure that everything kind of fits the scene, like nothing's distracting. Like if you've got a lot of camera movement, but then there's a lot of secondary action going on, or your primary action going on, you don't want basically your camera movement to be distracting from the actual animation. So yeah, it may look cool, but is it really necessary? So those are always things to consider. But this is a good way to kind of animate items, animate cameras. You can always just put keyframes on them and stuff like that, but actually put them on a motion path. And I think this is good because it kind of sets us up for animating actually geometry when it comes to walk cycles and stuff like that, making paths to animate things on. Like if you create one walk cycle and create a looping action on it, you can actually attach it to a motion path and have them walk around the scene. Same way with wheels turning, stuff like that. So I think it's a good way to go ahead and get started understanding motion paths, constraints, and basic movement. And is it really necessary to have all these camera flybys? Sometimes talking about in our After Effects studies too, you can do a lot of this stuff with After Effects, but if you can go ahead and render out camera movement in Maya and bring it over into After Effects, which I'll show you in the next tutorial, sometimes that'll work for the shot even better. So, okay, yeah, thanks for watching.